Welcome back to my podcast. Today, we continue the story of Atlantis. In 2015, Time magazine listed the 10 richest people in history. Genghis Khan was ranked 10th, Bill Gates 9th, and Emperor Shenzong of Song was 3rd, with his GDP accounting for about 1/4 of the global total. The second was Augustus Caesar, who ruled the Roman Empire at its peak. The first was a surprising figure, a king named Mansa Musa, who ruled the Golden Empire of Mali. Mansa Musa's Mali Empire was actually a state descended from the Mauri people. By the 14th century, the entire region of Egypt and North Africa had converted to Islam, and memories of the ancient past were scarce. However, some clues can still be found in history. For example, in 1324, during Musa's pilgrimage to Mecca, he paved his route with gold and spent so much gold in the holy city that it devalued gold for the next 20 years. Research shows that Musa's Mali Empire controlled over half of the world's gold production at the time. Even today, the Republic of Mali has 1,200 tons of unmined gold. So what does this have to do with Atlantis? It's not hard to see that areas rich in underground resources often have inhabitants who seem primitive but are said to have ancient civilizations. And these people always tightly guard their land and refuse to leave. For example, the Mansi people at the Dyatlov Pass, who later were found to live above rich uranium deposits. The Arabian Desert, barren for thousands of years, now known to sit atop vast oil reserves. And the goddesses of Mount Wu in Chinese culture, who have guarded the Wu Gorge since the time of the Shanhai Jing, sitting atop endless reserves of salt and gold. Ancient salt was as valuable as oil is today. Jimmy Corsetti focused on the Mauri people, who remain in the Sahara Desert, even through intermixing and conversion to Islam. By the time of Mansa Musa, it was found their land was rich not just in gold and salt, but also in various rare minerals. This closely resembles the description of Atlantis by Solon, such as the central temple of Atlantis being built of gold, silver, ivory, and orichalcum. Gold and silver are easy to understand, as is ivory, considering the Sahara was once an oasis. But what is orichalcum? Solon mentioned that orichalcum was used to make advanced weapons, which reminds people of the vibranium in the movie Black Panther. This material is clearly different from the bronze we usually understand. So what material is it? Further research suggests that the so-called orichalcum might refer to pentlandite, a nickel iron ore found in Mauritania. This ore is quite rare globally, but is abundant in Mauritania. If people thousands of years ago were able to use this nickel iron ore to make weapons, it would undoubtedly be a leap in technology compared to the bronze weapons used by Athenians at the time. This is because nickel iron alloys are still key materials for making tank armor and airplane shells today. The historical progression from the ancient Mauri people to the Mali Empire and then to modern Mauritania shows a continuous cultural and geographical connection. The Eye of the Sahara is located within Mauritania, and if you visit there today, locals might tell you that the first king of Mauritania was named Atlas. This name is the same as the king of Atlantis mentioned by ancient Egyptian priests. Is this just a coincidence? It's not a coincidence. The people of Mauritania have detailed descriptions of how their king came from the northern mountains to establish an advanced state right where the Eye of the Sahara is today. The mention of the northern mountains in many stories is believed to match Plato's descriptions, where he mentioned that Atlantis was bordered by great mountains to the north and the sea to the south. The so-called eyebrows to the north of the Eye of the Sahara coincide with a small mountain, and traces of water erosion can be found in the desert to the south, seemingly aligning with the North Mountain and South Sea. However, Jimmy points out that the real northern mountain should be located further north, on the southern coast of the Strait of Gibraltar. This mountain range, known as the Atlas Mountains to Europeans since ancient times, might be the key location. The ancient West African region, especially around the Eye of the Sahara in Mauritania, is known as the only salt mine area. People have always been curious about how this part of the desert could produce salt. Plato mentioned in his records that the core area of Atlantis was a circular island with a diameter of about 5 stades, followed by a moat 1 stade wide. Outside of that is a ring-shaped island 2 stades wide, featuring baths and hot springs, encircled by another moat 2 stades wide. Further out is another ring-shaped island 3 stades wide, with sports fields and hunting grounds, surrounded by another moat 3 stades wide. The outermost layer is a thick stone wall separating the city district, about 50 stades wide, where ordinary people and officials lived. The central island of Atlantis was separated by a wall of orichalcum dedicated to gods and priests. The first ring was separated by a wall of tin belonging to kings and high priests. The second ring was divided by a bronze wall occupied by nobles and divine servants live. Based on conversion, a stad in ancient Greece is about 185 meters, so the diameter of Atlantis would be about 23.5 kilometers. The diameter of the Eye of the Sahara is approximately 23.9 kilometers. Its structure also shows a 3-ring 1-island layout, roughly following a 5-2-3 ratio. So, are there hot springs near this central island? According to a study in 2014, there indeed is an isolated alkaline hydrothermal complex under the Eye of the Sahara that started in the Cretaceous period, similar to what is seen in Yellowstone Park today. This means not only the presence of hot springs, but also that of salt flats. Satellite imagery shows a ring of white area around the Eye of the Sahara, which is where the salt is located. Even today, camel caravans in Mauritania still go there to collect salt. These salt-carrying groups may have existed for thousands of years, once monopolizing the salt trade in West Africa. This explains why salt is so valued in Moroccan cuisine. The ancient Mali Empire was wealthy because it controlled salt, an ancient economic lifeline. By controlling the salt supply, the Mali Empire was able to subjugate surrounding tribes. By closely observing satellite images, we notice ripples in the land flowing from the southwest direction at the outer edge of the Eye of the Sahara. It looks as though a huge flood has washed through this area, as if the remnants of Atlantis were washed into the desert and then carried by floodwaters westward into the Atlantic Ocean. Adventure enthusiasts who have ventured into the Eye of the Sahara on the ground have found locals selling various man-made objects dug up from the desert at street stalls, including spherical and triangular objects whose purpose and meaning are unclear. If these items, considered to be naturally formed by the desert, are man-made, could the artifacts collected in local museums be evidence of advanced technology from 11,600 years ago? In 2006, a Norwegian research team discovered a massive oceanic sediment structure on the edge of Mauritania's continental shelf, suggesting it was caused by a tsunami. While its scale might not be apparent from maps, inserting it into satellite images reveals its immense size, perfectly positioned along the lines of the land ripples washed by floods. This sediment structure spans over 130 kilometers wide, and profile analysis reveals a staggering thickness of 3,200 meters, potentially hiding the prehistoric high-tech evidence we seek. Considering the scale of this flood, it might have been much larger than the tens of meters high apocalyptic floods depicted in movies. But if we assume this to be the end point of the flood, then where did such a massive water source come from? This question is highly complex, not easily explained by just a few rivers upstream of the Eye of the Sahara. Initially, Jimmy's investigation also started with these rivers, but he gradually uncovered even more astonishing facts. Jimmy's belief that Plato's described northern mountains should be further north, at the Atlas Mountains, is based on 2 main points. First, local legends in Mauritania say their ancestors came by boat from the northern mountains. Second, Plato mentioned that Atlantis had a developed transportation network, with the Nessus areas interconnected, allowing easy navigation to and from Atlantis to all parts of the world, making Atlantis a hub for global merchant fleets. Therefore, Jimmy speculates that this might describe a scenario where Sahara was a lush waterland Eden 10,000 years ago. From the Atlas Mountains to the eye of the Sahara, and extending to the Atlantic coast, there might have been a large river, tentatively named the Atlas River. This river, abundant in water, could have created vast Atlas wetlands in what is now the heart of the Sahara. The so-called Nessus were not islands, but continuous wetlands. But did such a river really exist? Could the Atlas Mountains have provided such an abundant water source for the Sahara Desert? In 2015, a joint research team from France and Japan provided evidence for Jimmy's hypothesis by discovering the ancient Atlas River. The study indicated that until about 5,000 years ago, this river was a massive waterway, comparable to the Yarlung-Tsangpo River, originating from the Atlas Mountains and nourishing the whole of West Africa and Mauritania. Its mouth was also identified, located precisely where an oceanic sediment mountain was found on the edge of the Atlantic Ocean, bringing legends and reality together once more. However, a question remains. Even if the Atlas River had a huge volume of water, 10 times that of the Yarlung-Tsangpo River, it is unlikely in reality to have destroyed the ancient civilization on top of the eye of the Sahara, or to have left such grand ripples on the land. Also, the sediment mountains in the Atlantic Ocean don't seem to match the characteristics of river-formed features. This raises a key question. Where did the water come from? Even with the discovery of the Atlas River, the source of the water seems unresolved. Jimmy was not deterred by this seemingly complex problem because the answer is already inscribed on the Earth. Continuing to trace through satellite images, one can find traces that seem to have been washed out, extending in a northeast direction all the way to Tunisia and further extending to the Mediterranean Sea. Thus, this was not merely a river, but an ancient strait connecting the Mediterranean Sea with the Atlantic Ocean. Scientists have already proven that about 10,000 years ago, the Sahara region was indeed a vibrant Eden, home to giraffes, elephants, and featuring plentiful water sources, as well as dense forests and grasslands. However, imagining the sea crossing the entire Sahara still seems a bit exaggerated. Nevertheless, a significant number of whale fossils were indeed found in Mauritania and the West African region, further proving that this area once had an ocean. The salt flats and land ripples in the desert are also results of oceanic sedimentation. So, how did this happen? That's it for today's podcast. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next episode.